Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have a bit of a situation to cover, and this situation is a result of the, upgraded drip marketing that Kuro Games decided to show us for Wuthering Waves 3.6, where they get into the characters, their attributes, and perhaps most importantly of all, based off the crazy amount of news we've been seeing regarding Qingxiao, their weapon. Here's Jingran, by the way. We'll make an extended video about this later, but I wanted to focus on Qingxiao for now, because I think that this is a bit of a problem. And I'm not out here trying to, doom post the character before she releases. I'm more so talking about this from a sheer, categorization, organization, and just, gameplay point of view. Because there's, in my opinion, a lot of issues with the next Arrow DPS character that looks like one of the strongest characters we've ever released in lore, who's also supposed to be a paragon, which is one step below a sentinel in terms of power. When you know that Qingxiao, right? And I'm just gonna play. I'm just gonna play a little bit of the 3.5 story cutscenes. This is how you know that Qingxiao is everyone's favorite character. Look at this story replay. Yeah, no, this one got updated. Look at Mello's story replay and look at what's most replayed. Nah, it ain't for E-Rover, it's for this. It's for this. We're cooked, right? Yeah, there she is, guys. This is the first character of 3.6. And just so you know, I've already talked about this before, but her sword control is so insane. These are 20 big swords, and they're all surrounded by thousands of little swords. So it's imagine unlimited blade works, but it's she summons a massive sword, and then unlimited blade works is surrounding that sword. And then she does that 8 times. So she's lived for over 100 years. She's considered to be one step below the Sentinel, maybe the same strength as a Sentinel. And, well, she's an Arrow character, and she's also a sword. You're probably beginning to, after hearing the stuff that I'm saying, you're probably beginning to identify what the problem is, right? This character is going to come in and pretty much just steal all of the thunder of another Arrow sword character that we have in the game. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Sentinel Resonator over here, Cartethyia. And I think it's obvious to everybody out there, Qingxiao is meant to be a DPS, right? If the character that's swinging around gigantic swords with little swords surrounding the big swords is meant to be a sub-DPS or support, we've lost the plot completely, right? And the end result of this is that you're kind of going to have a bit of another Arrow DPS situation. And this sucks, guys, because it's already happened to Cart before. Y'all remember the release of this unit? This unit takes Cartethyia and buried her behind the shed. Because Sigrika is both better as for free-to-plays, better for anybody in general. If you had a choice between Cart and Sigrika, this character is better to pull basically 99.9% of the time in the present, even though everybody skipped her. But that's just a meta fact. And I'm beginning to have the same idea over here that Qingxiao is probably going to be a similar type of unit. You're really going to want to pull her over Cartethyia, but do people really need more reasons to do that? I don't think so. I think there's a reason why this is considered basically one of the most popular scenes in the story. Nobody gives a fuck about Yang Yang. They only give a fuck about Qingxiao and the ore farming over here. That's I think that's pretty fair to say, right? Yeah, boring ass quest except for this part. This is another issue for more reasons. We're not just burying Cartethyia after Sigrika did 99% of the job. This is also going to be another sword character as a whole. Are you ready for this? This is where we're going to get into Crossing Stars and actually take a look at the menu. Let's take a look at some of the past DPS character releases. Sword. 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 That's going to make 3 sword users out of the last 1, 2, 3, 4 DPS characters. And if you don't count the Cyberpunk collab, yes, it is still 4 because of Sigrika. Sorry, it's 5 without the collab, 4 because of, or sorry, it's like 5 with Luke and Sigrika in between. That was a little bit confusing. So basically, all of 3.x has just been sword users as well as gauntlet users. And then you got like Lucy over here with the collab. And the situation over here is kind of like simple. These two units are sword users and then also have the same damage type. Yes, it's crazy. And the end result is that Linnea was kind of like the best in slot for both of them. Because she is a she's a sub DPS, right? That buffs liberation damage, which both of these units ended up wanting. There have been a lot of talks about Qingxiao's kit, and there's a reason why I was pushing so hard for her to be a broad blade user as opposed to a fucking, a sword user. And the reason's very simple. When you look at the new Sonata set that's in the game, right, this is obviously for Qingxiao now. We know what the arrow confirmation is for her, but it was kind of obvious from the name. This is Toon Strain shifting, and that increases your crit damage and then grants an arrow damage bonus. Right? So, naturally, you only have 2 sub-DPS units in the game that are going to work with Qingxiao on her release. Because Jing Ran's probably not going to be a sub-DPS, right? Based off his set. And those 2 sub-DPSs are Linnea, who has a Toon Strain mode over here, as you can see, and then also buffs liberation damage. And then the other one is Denya, who's also got a Toon Strain mode. But that's kind of like the situation, guys. There's only 2 Toon Strain DPSs in the game, and guess who Linnea doesn't have a teammate for yet? She doesn't have a teammate for her Toon Strain form, and then she also just buffs liberation damage at the same time. So the end result is, Linnea, if it's another sword, then she's going to be buffing yet another sword liberation damage dealer. And if that's the case, guys, we're now going to have 1 sword liberation damage dealer, another sword liberation damage dealer, and then Qingxiao. I mean, most people are probably having the same take. They think she's going to be the Linnea's DPS and be a sword. Well, now because she's confirmed sword liberation damage unit. The third one, potentially, right? She could be a different damage type. She could be a completely different damage type as well. Like, God forbid, maybe she got some weird fucked up scaling, right? And she actually uses like laser shear. God fuck you forbid. But she somehow uses laser shear. Like guys, that could be a thing too. But this thing is so dog shit, it's unbelievable, bro. Attack dealing damage targets at a Toon Strain gives resident skill damage bonus in ER. Wow, that's really something, guys. And this is the thing. If she doesn't work with Linnea, if she's not liberation damage, then effectively the only sub-DPS that would work with Qingxiao day 1 would just be Denya. It would like just be Denya with like Linnea as like an alternative, but she wouldn't buff her fully. Kind of like using a Linnea with Luke. But then you just have like this piece of shit in the game. I think this over here existing is probably what should piss off players the most. Because you see this weapon over here that just has like amazing base stats, good crit, all of that stuff, and then nice passive where it gives attack, and then dealing damage to targets that are under Toon Strained. Well, you just go ahead and you gain a liberation damage bonus. That would line up perfectly with Linnea as a character, right? And so I think a lot of people are just thinking, man, Qingxiao is going to be that free-to-play deluxe unit, and then you could just... But no. This doesn't have a user for another version. The Astrolabe doesn't have a user for another version, and it's EOG once again. And this is the situation when it comes to being a sword. I'm not going in that much about like the actual like meta viability or the meta downsides of being a sword, because there aren't really downsides to being a sword. There is a big upside, right? For Qingxiao being a broad blade user, because that synergy with the standard weapon was there. But in most cases, it's actually a lot better for you to be a sword user because you have EOG, and EOG gives its general attack effect, which pretty much everybody on the roster should be able to use, right? Much less specific than liberation damage like you see on the other weapon over there, and the Toon Strain specificity. That just means that Qingxiao as a whole is going to be a good pickup for a lot of people, right? Because you already have a weapon that should work pretty decently with her. And my personal take is this. We haven't had like an unviable sword character in a really long time because of EOG. And because of EOG, you oftentimes don't actually need their signature on pretty much all of their best teams. Yes, I have done great clears without Yang Yang Sig. I've done great clears without Hiyuki Sig. I've done great clears without Imith Sig. And if you have their teammates, you truly feel like you don't actually need it. And then those teammates, right? Think about your Chisas with your Hyuki, or your Ivets, or of course, your Denyus, they go with your Ivets or your Lukes. Blah, 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 all of that stuff. Or your Lucilla, who's going with Hyuki or going out to Echo skill teams. By getting their teammates, you can build other teams in the process, right? So it's kind of like a bit of a 2-for-1. Sword users are really easily able to fit their, or skip their weapons, while Rectifier users and stuff, on the other hand, right, really aren't able to. And the pistol users can just do whatever they want, because pistols are fucking broken in this game, the standard units. That's why everyone is free to play. And so it's actually good as a whole for the unit. However, I still think we need to take some actual time to talk about the... It's getting a bit diluted. I think we're getting to a point where it feels like there's almost too many sword users. I think that's pretty fair to say at this point. And I think that the end result over here is... I know China and Wuxia is all about swords, but this is also a personal take that I had regarding the character. We clearly see Qingxiao over here. Like, Kuro could have gotten really creative with this. Just look at one of Qingxiao's animations over here. Sorry, I'm just... these guys are just getting their ass beat, but it's hard to find the timestamp. Watch it right here. Couldn't she have just been a rectifier too? I mean this genuinely. She could have just been a rectifier DPS as well. So this is what I mean by... We don't really need to be spamming the sword this much. It's unnecessary. Because this is a character that summons swords with her forte. And so you literally see her attacking without wielding a sword. That's like her thing right here. Like in lore, she attacks without even wielding a weapon, which is kind of like a rectifier. Like how Verena attacks without using a weapon, right? She summons plants and shit. She's like Verena, but she summons swords. So like, yes, she easily could have been a rectifier. But instead, we have our 17th sword user this year. And the crazy thing is, Kuro has already been seen going crazy with the weapon types because this bitch is a broadblade. She has rectifiers literally in her idle animation sitting behind her as she's a broadblade. It would have been a little bit extra, right? If she had another if she had a third rectifier, well, this bitch has... Great, this bitch has 400 swords and now she has another one. Yeah, we thought it was weird if Mordia had another rectifier when she has summoned her kid. Great, this bitch is wielding a sword after she summons 10 million of them. Like, it's a bit on the nose, right? I think it's a little bit much. And for a character like this, who's all about summoning stuff, blah, blah, blah. It's just more of the same. Glad to see that the response that I've had and the opinion that I've had is starting to be shared a bit more across the player base. Because I don't think that this is a relatively disagreeable take for most people. I think we actually do have too many sword users. And my personal take is I don't want to see another sword user for like a year and a half. I'm not joking. I don't mean this like, oh, fuck free-to-play players, but no more EOG. But... Bro, we have other weapon types. We have other weapon types. And clearly, the most fucked over one is one that's getting some attention. You want to know the Broadblade characters in this game? We got Jing Ran. Then it was Chisa. Then it was like Augusta. And it was... Okay. Actually, we had a couple of Broadblade characters. Did we have no sword characters in Ridacida? Is that why they're over-rotating now? No, we had Camellia into Brant, into Cartethyia, into Chuya. No, we had a lot of sword characters last year, too. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's not too much. I don't know. I feel like sword users are the most populous in the game, though. So who actually knows? At the end of the day, I don't think it's that crazy of an issue, but it really does poke a hole, I think, into a lot of the plans that people were having when it comes to these standard weapons. And I would love to see more kits, at least in the future, that seem more intentionally designed around these. Because I think a lot of individuals have kind of been like looking at these, right, as sort of like, oh, they're supposed to be designed for either an existing character or a future character. And when we have so many of these weapons where literally only these two have a reason to be pulled, and all of these other ones are like, why would you get them unless you just don't have a 5-star weapon? I don't really know. Because we're in 3.5, it's been 6 versions. We've played 6 versions with these weapons, and only 2 of them are used. What's this supposed to be for? Who's this supposed to be for now? Are we ever gonna get a Toon Strain Liberation DPS? Did we, like, put this in the game for nobody to ever use? I'm just wondering. SP Calcharo? Or, like, who is this for? And who the fuck is this for? But maybe this means that we're going to get some fucked up ER scaling on Qingxiao in the future. I don't really know. My personal take is just this. Kuro games, enough is enough. Let's get some more diversity on the roster. I know swords are big in Wuxia, but, like, I don't want to see another sword character for the rest of the region. Like, if Sin is a sword, I might actually... If Sin is a sword, I might actually crash out, because that means, like, every Sentinel Resonator ever, and, like, they're all swords. Oh, I guess that's another thing we gotta mention. The strongest characters in the game are all also, like, sword users. I think she's strong in lore. She's broken. She's overpowered. She's, like, weak. She's weak in lore. He's overpowered in lore. She's overpowered in lore. Guys, it's like all the sword users are broken, too. And now we're gonna have God as the next sword user. One last thing that I wanted to mention over here, when it comes to sword users as a whole being generally better when it comes to a character, that's another big reason for it, is because sword users end up having some of the most, well, wide damage types in the game. However, there's another concern as well with this many sword users. Basically, after Chu Yan, or really starting from Cartethyia with Chu Yan as like the stand-in, right? As the outlier, we've started getting the most hyper-specific signatures in the game. Like, these are so specific, if you're not using the character it's designed for, they don't have an effect. And that's basically this one, as well as this one too, and also this one. Maybe there's also a possibility that's going to happen again for Qingxiao as well. So do keep that in mind. Maybe it's because EOG is so general and good, they kind of have, well, fucked over a lot of the other weapon types. It's unfortunate. Let me know what you all thought. Peace out.